What's going on, guys? Really excited to share with you guys this review. Once I saw it come up, I really wanted to get my hands on it to do a review, to share with you guys. I'm talking about the KANG G4 cable tower. Goes up to 215 pounds in weight stack capacity. Also kind of says it's a functional trainer. I don't know if I'd say that as its formal name. But the main reason I wanted to do this review and cover it and test it out for myself is because this is one of, if not the most inexpensive cable weight stack tower that is on the internet, or at least on Amazon right now. I've covered a lot of KANG products that are out there, and based on what I'm seeing, they seem to do things so well in the way they're taking very popular home gym or garage gym products, breaking them down at a very affordable price point, and not only making them really good and not being junk, the way they're shipped and boxed and organized is honestly up to par with some of the top names in the industry. And I wouldn't be surprised if this company is honestly manufacturing stuff for these other companies. Of course, this thing is not perfect, and it's at that budget for a reason, which we will get into in this video. If you guys like this content, you want to see more stuff like this, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. I'm not going to waste any time with this video, so jumping right into the unboxing. KANG is, again, very good with the way stuff's kind of shipped out. They actually came out, I think, in 5 boxes that was kind of spread a little bit sporadically. My attachments came at the very end, which I'll talk about, but that's why sometimes you don't see these in some of the footage I have here. But the main unit itself came in 4 boxes. I think you had 2 or 3 boxes that actually had the weight plates, which aren't exactly plates. I'll get into that here in a second. And then you had the actual mainframe. What I love about this company, aside from which I believe they made the lever gym that I reviewed, that was not the most organized thing in the world. Aside from the fact they did use kind of the standard bolts across the board, that is something they did here, where all the bolts seem to be the same. So you only got really one ratchet, setting you can kind of adjust with, so it kind of works with everything. So that's actually nice. But the way it's really organized, so aside from the way everything was kind of bubble wrapped, tightly sealed, everything was organized in the instructional manual from numbered to like the actual packets of what the bolts and everything were that corresponded with the simplistic manual that was very functional. Wasn't perfect, like step by step, but very easy to follow. I really appreciate the whole numbering system that they have here. Now, this is a wall mounted unit, which kind of had me a little bit hesitant. I committed to something I wasn't really sure if it was going to work out, but the way my garage is kind of set up, I got this brick at the bottom. I had to kind of build out a little bit. Slightly missed a stud, so that wasn't perfect. So this is really not the ideal setup, and I don't really know if this will stay here, but I thought this was such a good piece, and I thought I'm actually going to use it for what it's worth, that I definitely wanted to put it in and was worth installing for the sake of this video. But goes without saying, if you're gonna get something like this, you gotta find an ideal setup to where to install this thing. But I'd say at the end of the day, aside from you messing with certain things like I did, the install and setup was very easy. These guys also do a really good job in the promotional material for making it really clear on what you're getting. And with some minor things like the coloring, where this was, I think, chrome, and this looks like a powder coated black on the visuals that you're seeing on Amazon. Everything you're pretty much seeing is what you're getting. On this cable machine, you have this option of a 2-to-1 or 1-to-1 ratio, depending on how you configure the various setup. It's made up of 11 gauge steel. It has aluminum pulleys up here, but plastic over here. I mean, aluminum kind of where it counts. This is where you're gonna feel more of that smoothness. So I do appreciate that. They do give you an exceedingly awesome number of attachments. Many of these I did not have and wanted to get. I was actually hoping for something like this where I had a machine that actually provided all these. So this was honestly a great surprise. This was my last box I got, so I almost thought it wasn't gonna be there. I will make one little caveat when we get to the handle. The handle was very subpar, but they made up for it for all these other attachments that are coming in this package here. Awesome footprint, which I like a lot of things in this machine. I think they're actually borrowing from some other companies or some other popular products that are out there, but it is 28 by 30 inches in that footprint. It says the weight stack is numbered. That is not the case. There are some divots that you could put some numbering. I'll get to the weight stack here in a second. But again, it does go up to 215 pounds, which I think is probably perfect for most people's needs. Now, up close with the machine, it is pretty much what I expected from GMWD. It is not commercial grade quality, but again, it is 11 gauge steel, and it's done well for what it is. I wasn't expecting anything crazy, but I also didn't expect this thing to be a piece of junk. And so far, this thing is definitely living up to that expectations. So one area I think they definitely cut back, I don't think was as apparent on their website, are in these weight stacks. So this is not, metal weight. It seems like these are plastic with some sand filler on the inside. So unfortunately, going up an incremental weight with, say, magnets or something like that isn't gonna be possible. If you guys know any other kind of little hacks with going up incremental weight, let me know. So each of these is 15.5 pounds. Again, I think the third time I'll tell you it goes up to 215 pounds, I believe. I tried to follow the directions in the manual, how these things were listed. It says they are numbered. There's a little notch on the other side that I'll show you a shot of that are not numbered. You could actually, I'd probably put some tape on there, but otherwise there's no numbering system on here. Although for the most part, how I use these things, I pretty much would just pop the pin and kind of get a feel where I was at and kind of knew where I was in relation to that. I'm not meticulously tracking weight. I generally go kind of by feel. So if something, you know, is a little bit lighter initially, I might do some more reps. If it's a little bit heavier, I'll do a little bit lighter. I kind of throw the pin wherever it is. With that being said, the pin cannot really go in the front. You might see some shots where I'm using that. It started hitting kind of the middle part of this kind of middle pulley system. And I think you see it on their Amazon video. They actually recommend that you put it kind of in the back, or at least that's what I've been seeing. So the pictures show it one way, probably was a little mini design flaw, not a big deal. And I'm actually happy to put the weight plates on. Maybe it was backwards, I don't know, but I'll put some tape on this side because that's probably where I'll be adjusting it. Other little things they probably save some money on. These foot plates are not, you know, huge. They definitely get the job done, honestly, believe it or not. I thought I actually was missing a box because these look so small. I was expecting something a lot bigger, but these are pretty small in comparison to what they are. Still functionally works fine. The other thing is this little chain here. So you'll find yourself adjusting this a little bit. You don't have to go crazy adjusting it all the time, but let's say you got some extra slack, say up top, you might have to adjust this so it's not so, isn't hanging down as much right there. The pin is one of these unscrew, unbolt type deals. I think the increments are totally fine. I think the height is pretty good for most people. I'm 6 foot. I was doing things like seated lat pull downs, seated rows, no problems. Felt like your standard, I think, dimensions for a unit such as this. Now again, I already alluded to this, but while their main attachments they gave you are definitely awesome, definitely on the bigger side. You can see how big this single handle is, which I do appreciate actually. But these handles right here, this kind of fabric handle, trying to find the one that ripped, it tore out right here on the very first test pull. So I sat there, loaded some weight on, did a standing pull, and I kind of flew backwards a little bit, ripped it out very easily. So these things I would say are kind of junk and worthless. I wouldn't try these things again. There's some minor aesthetic defects. There is some minor scuffing here, but I don't know if that was for me from unboxing and doing some stuff. I definitely don't treat things too nicely as I'm throwing stuff out there, but for the most part, nothing major. One design thing I noticed that I'm a little anal about certain things is when you're doing stuff, I'll give you guys a close-up shot. It's over on, I think it's this pulley right here, is that this pulley is kind of have a slight rub against that plastic. I don't think that's really gonna make much of a deal, but these are fixed, so no matter how you spin this, there's a slight little, you know, rub against the interior that I just personally don't like. I wish they kind of opened this up just a tiny bit, but that's just a minor point. I don't think it's really gonna prematurely wear the cable casing down too much, or if at all. Now getting into, as I always say, where it counts, how this thing feels and functions as a basic cable weight stack machine. I just realized I didn't have their stock attachments on, so I went ahead and threw those on there. I think this thing does pretty much what I expected to do, and I mean that in the best way possible. I didn't expect this thing to blow me out of the water like the best single stack weight stack machine possible, and I also didn't expect this thing to be straight horrible based on my previous experience with this company. These guys seem to be doing what they've been doing, which is pretty much taking what other companies are doing very successfully already at a lower price point, kind of somewhat copying that, still holding up the integrity, say, of the steel, packaging, etc., like I said before, making some shortcuts like you saw here in the weight plates, but still doing it in a very good job where it counts in the basic function of the machine. You know, I love the design, what you kind of see a lot of these single stack machines having these dual pulleys here, which again is a 2-to-1 or 1-to-1 ratio depending how you set up the exercise. But I like this because you pretty much can functionally superset a bunch of things. So I can go into here doing tricep press downs, lower this down, go into bicep curls. And that's pretty much one of the reasons why I kind of like the machine and wanted a machine like this, which I'll get into kind of in a second, who I think this really be geared for. But for the most part, I just went through a bunch of workouts using this thing how I typically would use it. And I think this is probably how most people are going to use it. Going through things like your standard tricep press down, bicep curls, single joint, shoulder stuff. I did seated rows. I did some really great, in my opinion, lat pull downs or reverse lat pulls. I'm looking to get something else to help kind of anchor myself to test that out further. But a lot of back stuff feels excellent. Cable rotations, abdominal crunches. Those are pretty much the staples of all the things I would do with something like this, even when I used to go to the gym. And I gotta say, all these things felt, you know, excellent, felt no problem whatsoever. Now getting into who I think would like this machine and why I wanted to do this review in the first place. This is actually my first weight stack machine, and people often ask me, why don't you get a functional trainer? The quick answer to that is, one, I don't have a whole lot of space, nor do I feel like I really need it at this point in time. A lot of times I do use my Speediance Gym Monster, which I've talked about often, and I've said as cool as that machine is, I would only use it for a few exercises. And that's what made my brain kind of think, and then if I didn't have something like that, I'm probably looking more towards like this, because as much as I do love functional trainers, when I used to go to the gym, with some minor exceptions, there's a couple really good ones, the free motion one, I loved that thing. I was never wanted to, to use dual stacks. I pretty much would use them for things like supersetting back and forth to these traditional exercises that I've highlighted and that you're seeing so far in this video. I basically don't feel like I need 2 of those stacks. It'd be nice to have, but 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna be sticking to something like this. So honestly, we'll see in the future how much I use this versus that Speediance Gym Monster, because it might just be easier to kind of throw this on there and not turn something on. So I think for what it counts for most people's needs, using the basic exercise for one single cable, I think you'll know if this is you or not. If you're someone who does go to the gym, or you like setting up a bench for, say, like cable presses or rows or something like that, I think as long as I've been going to the gym since I was 16 years old, consistently, again, haven't gone in the last 4 years, but I think maybe 5 times ever in my life did I actually pull a bench in and set up and do something with a functional trainer, a cable machine, and a bench. So that's where I think a unit like this might be good if you're that type of person. Footprint, of course, is going to be a big thing, and of course, cost is going to be a giant thing. If you're looking at something relatively inexpensive, and you think for the most part, if this isn't going to get like heavy use, I think this thing's going to last you a very long time. I think even if you did use it heavy, I don't think anything's really going to wear out. Of course, cables in any machine are eventually going to wear. That's just pretty much easy to replace. Pulleys could wear, but you want to upgrade your pulleys, you can do that. But with the steel and the basic function of this machine, even these plastic plates, I can't see these things breaking anytime soon. This seems like a lifetime machine. Given the cost, I think it does the job very well. But then again, summarizing some of the cons, if you got some extra money to spend, say another, I would say $600, $700, $800, $900 possibly on top of this, and you want something that's a little bit more, quality in the parts and the mechanics, of course having metal weights, and just feels a little bit more commercial grade, a little more heavy duty, then yeah, go ahead and definitely spend that. But if you're in there for a budget item, weight stack machine, want a low footprint item, and you got something that you can actually bolt to the wall, I think this is pretty much up there as one of those no-brainer purchases, at least at this point in time from what I'm seeing so far. You guys got any questions, comments, feedback, let me know. As always, this is one of those things, if something breaks or iffy or weird happens, I will post a pinned comment down below for future videos or reference. Again, if you want to check this out, check out the description link down below, and I'll see you guys on the next video.